Yeah, the title pretty much says it all. I haven't smoked pot in the last 3 months now, and I can't tell you, well, I will tell you, the wealth of benefits that it's given me. And yes, I made the mistake of exposing this in my hand right at the beginning of this video. I have used nicotine vapes as not a wise alternative. Certainly a pacifier though. I think for me a lot of it was an oral fixation. I certainly, you know what, I'll abstain throughout the video. I will say, certainly there was much else about this wonder drug panacea plant that I can certainly do without, and am glad I am going without, these last few months. For decades now, the thing has been legalize pot, legalize weed. It's this miracle drug. It fixes everything, cures glaucoma, cures cancer, puts Parkinson's patients at ease, and there's some validity to those claims, but it is not for everyone. And the way that it has been marketed has created an avenue for the industry that is big weed, big cannabis itself, to conflate overpowered mutant THC laden weed with healing and cure-alls, like all that sort of shit, making it seem like it's synonymous. And I won't speak for anybody else, but you can generally assess that this is not something that is for absolutely everybody. It truly isn't. And after a while, I realized it wasn't for me either. So the last time I had abstained from smoking for any amount of time, before this 3 months had passed, was a 5-day stretch where I was actually scared out of smoking weed, having entered a period of sudden psychosis. Now for me, let me make it clear too, this is, if enough people were to see this video, there would be perhaps a handful of others who would be the ones to go out of their way to comment. That's my newborn passing gas in her sleep. Yeah, they have such tiny little undeveloped digestive systems. It's actually quite painful for them to pass gas. It's been an interesting struggle. However, back to the topic at hand. There would be a population of people who would put it in your face to say that, well, you're just weak, you don't have the mentality for it, you're just, you can't handle it. And, listen, there are many who have smoked for many years, will smoke for many years, will smoke for the remainder of their years. And that's fine. It's not up to me to make the choice for others to either smoke or not to smoke. And thankfully, a lot of these people are much too burnt out that it's a good thing that they'll never be encouraged to ever make that decision for anybody else. I've taken to mushroom coffee recently. It's really not as bad as everybody talks it up to be. But cannabis certainly is not the wonder drug cure-all that it has been talked up to be over the years. And I was convinced of that for a very long time, for a while. The majority of the time I was smoking pot, I was convinced it gave me this sort of fluidity to speak when I would create videos. You could see throughout a good number of my videos from the past few years, a lot of the times I was either actively smoking a joint, throughout a video, or I had just smoked before filming a video. And it gave me this idea that it gives you the same sort of conversational lubricant that, you know, alcohol does, a sense of like, you know, liquid courage they call it with alcohol, vaporized courage, or burnt, whatever, I don't know, I can't think of something clever to call it off the rip, but smoke-induced courage from cannabis. And it's become, there is really an unspoken danger to it that people just want to ignore, because American society has, you know, beginning in an underground society, beginning in the 60s, it's been, and personally, I don't, amid what my perspective on it is now, I don't think it should be illegal. I think that should only be the case if they suddenly outlaw alcohol again, which would never work. So don't expect cannabis to ever be taken off the market. But there certainly is a, people are being tricked into thinking that the weed has to be so overpowered, you have to attain an ever greater strata of high in order to enjoy it. And that ends up being true for a lot of people, but it also has a lot of psychological detriments to it brought on by its psychoactivity. A lot of people that are sensitive, for lack of a better phrasing, broken minds, can run into fits of schizophrenia, psychosis, psychotic breaks, things of that nature. Not to mention like whatever, you know, people are convinced they're having heart attacks and things like that, but it's not false that it does cause heart palpitations and all these types of things. And amid this, I wouldn't say that I'm anti-weed. I think I'm anti-weed industry in this country, because they've taken what what a lot of people anyways have been convinced, and have taken that good faith argument of weed into the mainstream to such a degree that it's just become daffy. It's become really silly. The like 35-37% THC weed. The most noticeable effect I would have in terms of talking in a video or talking to someone else was, I would completely forget what it was I was talking about less than a minute prior. And that thought would just, like an astronaut untethered from a spaceship, it would just drift away into space. And you look stupid and you sound stupid standing there or sitting there and trying to wrangle in what that thought is so you can continue on it. And it just wasn't pleasant, and I didn't like it, and I kept convincing myself that this is great, but the reality came down to it that I was delaying a lot of things I had in life. When there were times I couldn't smoke, it would cause a degree of aggression in me that wasn't pleasant for myself or anybody around me at the time. It's great at making one not only just like calm and happy and, you know, raid their snack pantry and give themselves a stomach ache. It had this life-halting docility that it inflicts on a lot of people. And I know a number of people who have done this to themselves. And it's, sometimes I have found with things I've given up, and when I try to convince others of it, it's bad, you shouldn't do it. I make the mistake of talking from a height of piety, and that's not right. It just objectively for me, I can no longer have even a rare occasional relationship with a joint. I've had my fun with it. I went as far as I could enjoying it until I felt it turn against me. And when I mentioned earlier that there are people that will say, well, it's just you can't handle it, you're just weak, or just some sort of crude non-argument that's just really an insult. There are people who are out there, certainly, that I have described similar to myself and how I ended up experiencing weed in the final months that I was smoking it. It was not only something that I would do because it was like I have a little downtime. It's something that I would attempt to run to because it was the thing that was going to settle me down and calm me and keep me level. And that's chemical dependency. It's not giving yourself a cure-all. It's not taking a potion. It's pacification for a pacification that is a compensation for a lack of self-restraint, self-control, self-regulation. I was relying on the plant itself to regulate for me. And even then, it wouldn't always do the trick because you would have to smoke more and more. And that was alarming to me too, how much I was smoking to not just get a high, but to be satisfied with my demeanor. And once you start relying on something to rearrange your demeanor in a satisfactory way, that's when it becomes dangerous. And after smoking, after having quit, it was rough the first month. It was hard to sleep. It was hard to have an appetite. I didn't experience the nausea. There's a specific medical term for it. I think it's hyperemesis, where the withdrawal from it is causing you stomach pain to the point of nausea and vomiting. I don't think I experienced any of that. If I did, it was very minimal, barely noticeable. But people, they deal with that terribly in the weeks and months after getting off cannabis. But 3 months out from not smoking it, the benefits are night and day. It's just so entirely evident. And honestly, it wasn't initially my decision to quit smoking it in the first place. Circumstances arose where I would be traveling with my wife and my children across several states, many of which were states where weed was still illegal. And I was met with this paranoia that I'd be caught with it. Thankfully, I had in my stoned stupor, which I was often in, I had a moment of clarity where I thought about everyone else who would be with me and decided against bringing any. And that frightened me almost as much as being caught with it and having my family suffer through whatever lawful consequence might have arose from being found with weed on me by a state agency like the police department in a state where it's still illegal, because I didn't know how I was going to handle it. Because it had become a part of a daily routine. It was something my body regulated and was very much familiar with because I was intaking it daily. And so I was scared of how my body was going to react when it began to notice, hey, he's not giving us our daily fix. And it did. It's like, shamefully, it spurred a lot of unnecessary aggression and anger, agitation that was unjustly directed at my family, which I can't blame it on the weed. I have to blame it on myself and how I allowed cannabis to get so out of hand in my daily routine. So I want others to see this and understand, it's like, you may not be one such person who is finding yourself in a state where this weed, this cannabis is just not doing it anymore. I don't like what it's doing to me. I don't like what I've become as a result of it. That may not be you. But I would ask you, reserve your judgment for those out there who do relate to that. And for those who do relate to it, I sympathize with you very much, and here to encourage you that you can find yourself in a state of sobriety. You can find yourself in a spot where you don't have to rely on the weed anymore. I can't truthfully and honestly tell you how to do it, because I was spooked by certain circumstances that compelled me to just give it up. But when I had returned home from the trip, I saw the rest of the weed I had, and at this point I hadn't smoked it for about 2.5 weeks. And so I was like, all right, 2.5 weeks. I didn't think I would be able to go a day. And that was the case. If it was in my vicinity, it was something I could tell me, all right, I'm not gonna smoke it, I'll smoke this. Whatever, it's the joint, I'll finish this joint. I kinda wanna eat something. Let me have something to appetize my palate and make the food appear more savory to my taste buds. But when I got back home and I saw whatever it was I had left on my tray, my little rolling tray, it was about, I had about, it was about a half an ounce of shake. It was a bag that was a half ounce of shake, but by the time I'd smoked it, it was about 9 or so grams left. I took it and I threw it all away. I threw it directly in the trash along with all the paraphernalia I had. Any roaches, unfinished joints I had kept in tubes in my car, I took those and I threw those away too. Well, to be honest, I did keep those in my car for a little while longer, but I only had kept them there in case I felt like I was in distress and I truly needed it as a last-ditch effort. But thankfully, I only kept my eyes on it, and I never reached for it. I never brought it to my lips. I never lit it up, and I never took it back in once getting home, because I knew that would just lead me down a careless path where I was gonna find myself buying more of it, and that's not what I wanted. I knew, from me personally, I was not strong-willed enough to regulate my consumption. So I knew that if it was there and I smoked it, I was going to get more of it and smoke it at will. And I no longer wanted that for myself. I'd gone 2.5 weeks at this point. Most of the roughest of the seas, we had gotten the ship across the breakers. The storm was not as treacherous at this point. I wanted to see where it would take me, and I'm more attentive to things that have to be done. I can dream again. When I sleep, I actually have vivid, not like aspirations, dreams, like actual dreams. The weed, and a lot of people can attest to this, the weed, for whatever reason, there's a science behind it, it just blocks off whatever chemical activity it swishes around in your brain during sleep that causes you to have dreams, vivid dreams, lucid dreams. And I had been lucidly dreaming, a state which you can actually find yourself manipulating elements of your dream to direct how it goes. I've been doing that more than I ever experienced in my life. even before I started smoking weed. It's quite a shift. The dreams aren't scary, but they're quite, it's like an odyssey. It's very, very strange, more strange than I remember experiencing before I had started smoking back in 2018. And so I'm only 3 months detached from that relationship. And if that's you, like I said, if you're someone who has just been brought to a low that you are saddened and frustrated to have found yourself in, you can do it. I wish I could tell you how. I wish I had like the steps that I could tell you how to do it. All I can tell you is that I'm glad that I went through with it, that I'm continuing to go through with it. Not the proudest of myself for having used this as like an oral fixative replacement for now, but that certainly has to go too, because that's arguably worse for your body. But the psychological effects of cannabis are real. They're endangering to one's mental stability, and that has to be spoken about. Like, real education has to be put out there about weed and how just overpowered it's becoming, and how mutated it's turned into, not just as a plant but as the industry itself. It's the practices, from things I've read, things I've seen, and it's become shady. But it's like any other industry. Once it starts making the money, once it starts getting the politicians on its side and the endorsements and everything, then it's kind of like open season for all for less and less regulation. But telling you now, if you're someone who deals with it in that sense, and you're sick of it, you're sick of yourself feeling that way, you're sick of yourself telling yourself, I'm gonna regulate, I'm gonna taper, and hours later, you're smoking just as much as you were before promising yourself that you wouldn't. And so, yeah, I was convinced for a while that it was helping my content. It was making me more fluid, more clever, more imaginative, more creative, and to an extent, it offered that in the beginning. But you do lose interest quite soon with lots of things when you smoke too much. And for me, smoking just a little bit was not within my realm of capability. In that sense, I was too weak-willed. So yeah, cannabis, it's not what's being spoken up to be. More and more people are realizing that, I think, and there is a healthier life ahead of all of us when we abstain and we let go of habits that are, destroying us by shrouding us with a false sense of comfort and security and a false sense of stability that we think is being aided by whatever substance is working to alter our perspectives, our mental states. So I'm cannabis free for the foreseeable future, and I intend to keep it that way. So thanks for watching. Mushroom coffee is not that bad.